Hello, my name is Josh, and welcome to the Fair Deal Democrats podcast. This week, our guest is Thomas Goldenberg. He is the CEO and founder of Victory Waves, a company that provides campaign management software for Democratic and progressive campaigns. So I'm excited. I've been working with Tom a little bit over the last couple of months. This is an exciting project. It's one of the first to bring AI technology into the campaign management software landscape. As somebody who's worked on campaigns for 20 plus years, I'm excited by the potential of this project to make the mundane tasks of campaign management much more easy, much more accessible to people who are not full time campaign professionals. And so, with that, I welcome my guest, Thomas Goldenberg. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Josh, great to be here. You can call me Tom.
Great. So, Tom, you had a long career before you got involved in politics. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself by way of introduction?
Sure, I have what you might describe as an unconventional background. I spent my 20s actually in India after studying jazz piano and classical Indian music in college. So that was, 9+ years of my life. I happened to be there during the tsunami of 2004 and was pretty heavily involved in some of the relief efforts that came after that for the next year. My specialty there was languages. I became very fluent in the local dialect, which was Malayalam, where I was staying, and later in Sanskrit. And I actually taught Sanskrit at a university in India. So again, very unconventional. From there, I came back to the States, and I kind of took this experience of learning a language, especially a very complex one, and applied it coding, which was something that I wasn't really exposed to prior to coming back from India, but it was something that I thought, hey, I might be good at this. And so that's kind of how I, mostly self-taught and through non-accredited programs, broke into the tech scene 12, 13 years ago. And haven't looked back, really. So I was in New York City in the tech scene there. I was a software engineer, both front end and back end. And I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial itch. And so after I was somewhat established as a software engineer, I started my own company as more on the technical side. I was a technical founder. So I was the chief technology officer of a company called Commandiv. And, after kind of ran its own course, I went into consulting, and that kind of shifted my skills from just the purely technical to the business and the strategic. And so that was about 5 years working at BCG, McKinsey, still doing AI and very, very complex use cases across all range and manner of industries. And I think that really gave me the viewpoint of what does it take to kind of scale these new technologies so that the end user actually sees the benefit. Right. And then I made the choice to run for public office. I had long kind of cherished the desire to do so. It seemed like the right time. It's like having a baby, right? There never is a perfect time, and it certainly was an all-consuming task. But as a first-time candidate, as someone who didn't come from the kind of political world, I was just like a sponge. I soaked up as much as I can. I learned a lot. I did not win, but the experience, especially kind of seeing the technology tools that were out there, and then in the private sector, how large companies are using technology, it gave me this kind of stark contrast of, oh, wow, this is an area that has not really kept pace with these other industries.
No, politics has long been a technological backwater, sad to say. Great. So, in the aftermath of your campaign, you decided to address that issue, and is that when you created Victory Waves?
Yeah, to be honest, Victory Waves happened a little bit as an accident, and I think some of the best things do happen that way. I had a real need during the campaign, which is I wanted to do well. I wanted to run a data back campaign. I didn't have the tools that I wanted to at the time. And so after the campaign, I had this in my mind. And the first thing I did after the campaign was I went teaching computer science. So I had these students, I was helping them to create their own projects and startups. And this became a great example use case that I could use to show them. And so that's how it started. Eventually, I did get help from some of the students who took internships to build out some of these tools that just didn't exist. So, for example, when I campaigned, I did not qualify to get on the Democratic primary. And in our state, Connecticut, I actually wasn't alone. I had raised over 100,000. Were thrown off in all of our three major cities in Connecticut. And as you can imagine, that was extremely disappointing, especially all the effort of our team, etc. But now that I've worked on campaigns across multiple states, I know what the pitfalls are. And so with a team of students, we developed a AI technology that can scan a petition page and actually forecast how many of those signatures will be accepted by the town clerk, the registrar, or other type of agency that reviews. And it is very different state to state. But, we developed that about a year ago. We got to actually do it in the New York City Democratic primary and help a first-time candidate to get on the ballot. And that's a requirement of nearly 4,000 signatures. And the candidates in New York City, the advice that they're given is, oh yeah, you just have to spend $100,000 to do this, right? There's not a great science other than, we're not going to check each signature. We're just going to get, I don't know, some arbitrary amount higher than what we need and just assume that that's fine. And so there wasn't a lot of accountability. There wasn't a lot of just efficiency of organizing. And we were able to bring that to a citywide race. And since then, I've helped some municipal candidates here in Connecticut who were able to get on the ballot and help people at least prevent the situation that I had to go through. Josh, we've talked about bringing this to other states, including Illinois. So that's just one example of some of the kind of innovative ideas we're bringing, and we hope to bring to candidates.
Right. So, like in my experience, I've worked with a lot of first-time candidates, and one of the things they find, and part of my job as a consultant is to help them with this, but there is so much gatekeeping in terms of being able to access certain resources. So there's all these hoops to jump through, legal hoops, access to basic data, things like that. And then also everything is dispersed. Your field operation, there's a program for that. Your fundraising operation, there's a separate program for that. And then if you're a large enough campaign, you have to hire people to do communications and other parts. So it's all very separated and siloed. And so one of the things that when we first started talking that attracted me to Victory Waves was the ability to bring all of that. So Victory Waves, I call it the VW. I don't know if that's caught on, but you can cut turf easily using this product. You can run phone banks through the VW. You can organize your fundraising calls, and you can organize your communication strategy. And so, and you get through the strategic advice, you get some guidance. So, first time candidates, it's such a daunting experience. And so, what's exciting is that this makes it much more accessible, particularly for down ballot races where campaigns are usually one or two people. It's not an army of consultants.
A couple, 100% to everything you're saying. Just a couple reflections on that. So many elections just go uncontested.
Right.
It's because of the challenges you mentioned. And one of the things that really stuck with me in my campaign, as someone who works with technology, 12, 13 years, there is a very steep learning curve to using a tool like NGP Van.
Right.
And, in some way, we've kind of created these monoliths, right? Like you go to this company you go to ActBlue for fundraising, you go to NGP Van for voter data.
Right.
But at least in the case of NGP Van, it's not something that just being a smart person you can pick up on day one.
Right.
And I think that is a real hurdle to people, because then you're separate from your data. You don't have access to it. You have to hire someone just to be able to use that tool. And that's a real challenge for people. So, one of the things that we do, which I encourage everyone listening, if you are running a campaign, someone that's running a campaign, have them go to victorywaves.com, and for free, we generate a campaign strategy document for any candidate, any kind of progressive or even party neutral candidate. And that right there, that can at least help you get started, right? And then we offer plans for everything, canvassing, to set up a turf on Van. You have a whole industry that people know how to do this, and but we're democratizing it. You just say into our app, hey, cut me a turf, City Council District 5. I want the prime Dems. And it's just there. You get emailed a walk list. You get a code that people can use the mobile app. That's something that anyone, day one type of proficiency can have. And that's basically what we're going for.
Yes, and just to let our listeners know, NGP Van is sort of the Democratic industry standard for campaign management software. It is quite cumbersome. It is something that is usually given through the Democratic Party operation. So it's a huge advantage for incumbents who have easier access to NGP Van, and to have easier access to people who have, like you said, this expertise, because there is a steep learning curve. And so, yes, one of the huge advantages of the VW is that it can make it accessible for any reasonably intelligent person running.
And just to add on that, Josh, I would say that it has been the standard. I don't think that is. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty right now about that. With our current DNC, they've issued a call for new ideas and new innovations. And I think in general, and there were some issues with Van in the 24 election in terms of its ability to support things at scale. So I think there is in general, an idea that, we need to foster innovation. We need to try new things, and maybe let in a way, market forces kind of decide what is the new standard, rather than just kind of cherry picking this one tool. So I do think that is very much in flux right now.
Yes, absolutely. There's been growing discontent just over the last few cycles with NGP. There's one a few years ago. I was a friend said, "Oh, Josh, will you sit down and meet with this candidate she was running for judge here in Cook County?" And her consultant had basically abandoned her, taken the money and run. And this poor woman, she was a paraplegic athlete. She would go to like the Olympics that they have for paraplegic athletes, and she was really an exceptional person. But, she was stuck in the middle of a campaign with nothing. And I was able to cobble together a mailing list so that she could at least get some mailers out just as a favor for a friend. But, I was just thinking as I was getting ready for this, like that was exactly the sort of situation where this could have been a game changer. And it can be a game changer going forward. So,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we are entering a phase right now, which I think as a party, we need to up our game. But individual candidates, including incumbents, are going to need to up their game as well because there's a dissatisfaction with the way that things have gone. There's a dissatisfaction of, in my district, our congressperson hasn't been challenged in 30 years.
right.
And as good as they are, I love my congressperson, but I don't think that is the way that we build a strong bench. I don't think that that's the way that we, just build compelling leaders in our party. And this year is I think the first time in a while that we've seen more challenges. We've seen efforts to actually fund challengers in primaries.
Right.
And I don't think it's just about ideals. I think it's also about we need competition. And so I don't think that this is just for the first time candidates. I don't think it's just for, someone who's on a shoestring budget. I think everyone is going to have to be up their game a little bit instead of just relying on the tried and true, because there are going to be challengers in these upcoming races.
Right. I want to just circle back to one of the features of this product, the petition validation. I cut my teeth in Chicago, where I still am based. And the rule of thumb was you needed to collect 2.5 times the signature requirement to ensure that you would be on the ballot. So for mayor, for instance, that's roughly around 12,000 signatures. So, these candidates who are
that's a lot. Yeah.
You're really collecting 30,000 signatures.
That's a massive undertaking.
Yeah. Right. And so to your point about efficiency, if you could, with the VW, you can every day you can upload the petitions that you're receiving so that you can get a hard count of how many people, for each page. Say you have 10 voters, 10 signatures on a page, you would upload it, scan it into the VW. They'll review it, and they'll
in real time. It'll scan and it will tell you.
And so no,
I mean, no, I was going to say, like, one of the other things that happened in New York, people are paying consultants not just tens of thousands of dollars, like in some cases, $70,000 to $100,000 for citywide to collect these signatures.
Right.
And there's no verification as to the quality. So with our candidate that we worked with, who was using a consultant, we actually found that there were solicitors, committing fraud where none of their signatures were valid. And that wasn't just useful to the campaign. It was also useful to the consultant.
Right.
Because that was someone that they had brought on and were paying. And this person was just going to, a Starbucks or something and jotting down names. And it's something you don't even have to think about. You just take a photo. In fact, we even set up a text number so that your solicitors, they can just take a photo on their phone and text it to the text number. And that's it. It gets submitted to the system. And so at the end of the day or any time during the day, the candidate or the campaign manager can log in and say, okay, this person, their valid rate is 80%. This person is only 30%. So maybe I need to encourage this person more, and I need to have a conversation with the other person. So that level of, having control over operation, this is really important. So yeah, we're excited to be, I live on the East Coast, but we're excited to be, offering this to candidates in Illinois and other states where this is an issue.
Right. So we have the petition validation, and then, like I mentioned earlier, we have the field component where you can cut turf, which for some of our listeners is just a walk sheet, a list of voters to go talk to. So volunteers on the weekend can get a list of 30 names and a list of addresses and, go and do go talk to voters. So you can coordinate that through the VW. And it works, like you mentioned, through an app on your phone. You don't have to have a bunch of papers and stuff. You can just click and say, "Oh, hi, Mr. Mr. Smith. How are you today?" And make your pitch and move on to the next one. You can record, "Oh, Mr. Smith is supporting you, or is still needs to make up their mind, or whatever." And that data is entered in real time. So that at the end of the day, you know how many voters you've spoken to, how many new supporters you've identified, and it gives, like you said, more control to the candidate and their.
But yeah, I was saying that, first of all, if people have used another platform like Van or Nation Builder or whatever, we help you to port everything over so that you keep all that information. The second thing is, we also help candidates get approved for social media ads like Facebook and Instagram. And we have these specific identifiers that you need to target specific users. So instead of just saying, "Hey, I'm going to send a Facebook ad to everyone in this radius," you can, all the people that are likely to vote, your prime voters for that primary, I just want them to see it. And so we help people to do that, which is also much more efficient. And we have a ton of information on each voter in your district. And we have that because we partner with L2. L2 is the most reputable data provider for voter data. They're often cited in the New York Times. When academic institutions like Harvard, Yale, etc., when they want to do research on voters, they partner with L2. So we're very fortunate to have that partnership and be able to use that wealth of data to help candidates run very targeted campaigns.
Just to know something's touching the microphone or something, it's moving around, it's causing a little bit of static. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I can say, in the last few cycles, the social media has gotten more important. Placing social media ads, there's a huge back end process to it. Again, it can be a nightmare for campaigns to have to navigate that. So having a tool like this that can help them with that process is enormously helpful, particularly as, social media ads become more and more of a campaign budget. I mean, I don't even spend money on TV anymore, and all because the only way to get people is on their phones, really.
Right. Exactly. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, you look in the New York City race and you see how much, social media was a component in that race. And I think that is ubiquitous. It also doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Like, to do good videos nowadays, you don't have to hire someone for $10,000 to shoot a video. And, if you look at, Zohran Mamdani's, his videos, you can see that. And so that's something that we help candidates to understand is like, you can be very targeted with getting the dollars that you do have to get your message out. You got to go to where your voters are. And a lot of them are on social media, and you can be very specific in terms of how you spend the dollars that you want those ads to reach them. So yeah, there's so many ways. We've said a lot already, and we train an AI for every candidate on your district voter data. So instead of just going to ChatGPT, that doesn't have the context of the voting behavior, that doesn't have the context of, the ideology of different voters, our AI is specifically trained on each candidate's voters. And so, in terms of like just kind of brainstorming about strategy and messaging, etc., it can be very helpful. And like I said, if anyone goes to victorywaves.com, if they're a candidate, they can get a free campaign strategy. It's like a 15 to 20 page document that most candidates would pay, I don't know, $5,000 for. We want everyone to have access to that information.
Right. And so in the link, I'll put a link in with this post that will to direct people to vote Victory Waves. So you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. And that's when you can generate, and once you do that, you can then generate your campaign strategy document. Any thoughts for the immediate future? Like what's next in terms of how this technology is evolving as we look to 2026 and the next presidential election?
It's a good question. I think, I mentioned how few campaigns are contested. I think it's more than 70% of elected offices go uncontested. And if we can push the needle there and show people that they can do this, their first time candidate or not, that to me it would be a huge success. And so that's what I'm looking forward to in this cycle. I do think that this is the future of campaigning. And, there's when I would consult about AI in the private sector, we would say, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. And I think this is very similar. Like these AI tools are incredibly powerful. And yes, there's as a society, there's a lot of risks that we need to grapple with, which is why we need good elected officials to help us with that.
Right.
So in terms of getting people in those positions, this is a powerful tool. And if you're not using it, the chances are that your opponents are. And so, I want this to be something that makes it easier for people to run and that we're able to have more competitive elections.
Fantastic. Well, I can say that I am really excited about using this product throughout this cycle and working with you throughout this cycle. Thank you again for taking the time to come talk with us today. I want to thank our listeners, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.